In 1941, in southern Thailand, when the Second World War had just begun, the swearing-in ceremony of new Thai soldiers took place. However, some junior soldiers were busy looking for entertainment by hiring comfort women. Of course, their actions angered the captain. Despite the punishment, the young soldiers still showed no fear. In fact, they even played with the captain without the slightest tension. Not far from that location, a corporal named Mike was overwhelmed with happiness. His girlfriend, Pen, had just informed him that she was pregnant with their child. This exciting news made Mike even more determined to take their relationship to a more serious stage. His best friend, Band, was also excited to hear the news. However, the happiness didn't last long. A fisherman suddenly came with bad news: the enemy was moving closer to their territory. This news made the situation suddenly tense. Thai and Japanese military officials immediately called an emergency meeting. During the meeting, Japanese representatives revealed that they had created a terrifying biological weapon, something they believed could lead them to victory. However, the Thai military did not want to give up so easily and insisted on fighting back. Elsewhere, a young soldier named Momo, who is still a junior soldier, faces a major dilemma. She has an older brother who is also serving in the army, and her mother is worried for their safety. Having lost her husband on the battlefield, she didn't want her two children to suffer a similar fate. Momo herself didn't want to be a soldier and had tried to escape from training several times, but was always caught by her brother. Now, they had no choice but to stay in the army to defend their homeland. Suddenly, Japanese troops began landing on the shores of Songkhla, Pattani, and other coastal areas. When the reality of war finally dawned on them, the junior soldiers began to panic and fear. Many cried, and some even chose to flee rather than face the possibility of death on the battlefield. However, in the midst of the chaos, something far more terrifying happened. A mysterious chest sent by Japan opens, and from within emerges a horrifying creature, a group of humans who turn vicious, brutal, and uncontrollable. Momo, who tried to escape, is now faced with an even greater horror. Momo, who was running in panic, was now plunged into the sucking mud. She tries her best to get out, but something far more terrifying awaits her. The soldiers who have turned into zombies pull her body into the darkness. Meanwhile, in the midst of an increasingly chaotic battle, radio communications between Japan and Thailand attempted to open negotiations for a ceasefire. Both sides realized that a protracted battle would only bring destruction and heavy losses. However, at the same time, the Japanese troops who had just discovered a secret hideout were surprised by a surprise attack from the zombies. Instead of running away, they try to capture the monstrous creatures, not realizing that the situation is already completely out of control. In the Thai military barracks, Mike is still trying to find his loved ones, believing that they might have survived. But all that remains is devastation, blood flooding the floor, and body parts scattered everywhere. The eerie silence left only the remnants of the brutal battle that had just taken place. When Mike and a few other soldiers found a soldier who appeared to be merely wounded in a hole, they tried to render aid. However, they didn't realize that the soldier had turned into a zombie. His horrifying form made their guts instantly collapse. Mike still didn't fully understand what was really going on behind this war, but from what he saw, the only effective way to get rid of the zombies was to burn them. Without hesitation, he immediately reported his findings to the captain. This statement naturally left everyone who heard it dumbfounded, some even showing expressions of disbelief. Elsewhere, Momo, who had previously survived the quicksand trap, was now infected. However, unlike the other zombies, her consciousness didn't seem to be completely gone. She leads a group of other zombies to attack, but in her now muddled mind, she begins to question what exactly happened to her. Meanwhile, a Japanese official discovers an old document that records a secret project that began in 1939. The document reveals that a doctor once created a virus capable of turning humans into aggressive creatures with incredible strength. However, in some cases, there are individuals who retain their consciousness despite being turned into zombies. Momo, who was now in zombie form, suddenly saw a necklace lying on the ground, the necklace that belonged to her brother. The sight caused a deep feeling of sadness in her, even though her body was no longer human. Captain Japan now brought Captain Tai and Corporal Mike together, informing them that the chaos engulfing the surrounding area was not simply an enemy attack, but the result of his own men's negligence. They had carelessly left a crate containing dangerous experimental results open, causing the spread of a virus that turned humans into zombies in no time. Captain Tai and Mike were absolutely furious with the Japanese actions, but what had happened was irreversible. Now, there is no longer a barrier between friend and foe. The zombies will not choose who to attack. In the midst of this precarious situation, Captain Kamaru of the Demolition Task Force arrived with orders from above. he asks Captain Thailand and Corporal Mike to join him in capturing the zombies alive. Meanwhile, Momo, who has now turned into a zombie, refuses to believe that she is no longer human. Desperate, she picks up a gun, intending to end her own life. However, before she could pull the trigger, her body suddenly reacted strangely. A mysterious liquid oozed out of her pores and instantly ignited a fire that shot out in all directions. No one knew what was going on, but a doctor involved in the project revealed that fire was the virus' main weakness. Now, they are beginning to understand that zombies' bodies are extremely hot, which makes them uncomfortable in dry environments. Therefore, many zombies chose to hide in caves or soak their bodies in water to stabilize their temperature. Elsewhere, the Destroyer Task Force team began their mission capturing zombies alive for further study. Although their hearts were filled with hatred for the creatures, they had no choice but to follow their superiors' orders. The zombies who lost control often attacked both humans and animals in order to survive. When the hunting party finally managed to find a trail of zombies, they decided to stay put and observe the creatures' movements. However, Captain Kamaru chose another tactic. He sliced off his own arm, letting his fresh blood drip onto the ground. The strong scent of blood instantly attracted the zombies. Sure enough, they began to arrive, and in no time, the team managed to capture several of them alive. At the base, Mike was furious when he saw the zombies being tortured instead of killed. However, the scientists and military officials explained that they just wanted to study the behavior of the creatures. One of the things that surprised Mike was when he saw that regular bullets didn't work on the zombies, but there was something even stranger. After they ate and felt full, their consciousness seemed to return. Some zombies even started talking to each other, imagining how their lives would have been if they hadn't been drafted into the army. The previously tense atmosphere slowly turned more humane. Some zombies even cried, as if lamenting their tragic fate. No one expected that in the midst of this horror, they would witness something impossible. The zombies singing softly, as if reminiscing about the past. The remaining zombies finally realize that their numbers are dwindling. With a sense of anger and resentment, they decide to go to the village in search of their families. However, among them, there is one zombie who was previously so ambitious to fight and attack humans, but now his heart melts when he sees his father's figure coming towards him. The father could not accept the fact that his son had turned into such a creature. Emotionally, he tried to embrace his son, but Captain Kamaru unhesitatingly finished him off. The zombie could only watch in deep pain as his father fell lifeless before him. Mike, who witnessed the incident, could not stay silent. He tried to defend the zombies, but that only complicated the situation. Captain Kamaru, not wanting any betrayal in his team, finally kicked Mike out of the mission and ordered him to leave. Captain Kamaru had studied the mindset of the zombies and realized one important thing: they still had memories and a sense of longing for their families. With that understanding, he planned something ruthless, attacking the village and trapping the zombies there by luring them using their loved ones. On the other hand, a young man named Panning was trying to return to his village. However, on the way, his bicycle broke down, leaving him to walk. He didn't expect to be shocked by the gruesome scene, pieces of human bodies littering the streets. Meanwhile, back in the village, the desperate residents resorted to mystical means to survive. They held a ritual with a shaman to summon protective spirits. Unexpectedly, the ritual actually worked. Before long, the zombies began to arrive, as if an invisible force was calling them to hunt. In the middle of the crowd, an old woman named Mrs. Tam prayed for the safety of her child, Momo. Unexpectedly, Momo, who has now become a zombie, comes home, not to attack, but to make sure her mother is okay. The other zombies scattered, looking for their own families. Momo looked sadly at her mother and brother. Tears flowed from her sad eyes. She realized she had changed, but her heart was still the same. She was the same old Momo. In a hoarse voice, she warned her mother that if anything happened, the only way to protect herself was to use fire. After that, she left to try and save the villagers as best she could. However, at the same time, a giant zombie known as the zombie shark begins to rampage, chasing after her own family. Her heart is in her throat. On the one hand, she wants to stay with her son, but on the other, she realizes that the world has changed and there is no place for them anymore. Meanwhile, the joint Japanese and Thai forces of the Demolition Task Force begin firing on the zombies. However, their actions trigger a huge chaos. The zombies who were only looking for their families are now enraged and start attacking indiscriminately. In the chaos, the Japanese troops accidentally shot Captain Kamaru, resulting in his death. His sister can only cry seeing the captain's body lying lifeless. On the other hand, Momo also had to face the harsh reality. The brother she loved so much was now pointing a gun at her. Without mercy, he pulled the trigger, shooting Momo without hesitation. The zombie could only cry before finally collapsing. Mike, who was originally human, is now a zombie. Emotionally charged zombies do tend to lose control, and the increasingly uncontrollable chaos makes matters worse. Meanwhile, the remaining villagers are gathered at the western border of southern Japan. They actually understand what happens every night, despite rumors that it's all the result of a beast attack. However, not all villagers believed that. Many came to the site to find out if among the bodies found were their missing relatives. In the midst of this situation, a mother was devastated to learn that her son's name was included in the list of the dead. The feeling of loss was profound, making the atmosphere even more tense. Captain Kamaru, who didn't want this gruesome experiment to be exposed, began to devise a heinous plan. He intended to massacre the entire village so that no eyewitnesses could spread the word about this secret experiment. All deaths would be recorded as casualties of war, making it look like an ordinary occurrence in the midst of conflict. This plan was opposed by Thai officials, who felt they could not accept such a cruel act. However, as the leader of the task force of destruction, Kamaru had no other choice. If other countries found out that they were creating dangerous biological weapons, a major war would erupt. On the other hand, the zombies began to feel tremendous frustration. They had lost control of themselves, and some had even started eating each other. Mike, now a zombie himself, saw his friend being devoured by another zombie and questioned his actions. However, before he could think further, he was suddenly attacked by another zombie. Mike fights back, while elsewhere, Kai, who was previously captured and tortured, manages to escape. After managing to survive, Kai finally reveals the horrifying truth: all their families will be slaughtered, just like his father's fate. Hearing this, they have no other choice. The only way is to unite and fight the Japanese. Now, with Mike now a zombie, he leads the zombie fight on the front lines. Meanwhile, the Japanese soldiers who had taken the zombies' families captive began transporting them into the forest. The zombies who were already there waited expectantly, hoping to be reunited with their loved ones. However, the reality they faced was very cruel. As soon as their families appeared, the Japanese soldiers shot them mercilessly, killing them one by one to eliminate witnesses. The zombies who witnessed the savagery could only cry. Their suffering turned into burning rage. Those who still had lovers or mothers alive decided to bite their loved ones in order to turn them into zombies. It was better that way than seeing them die at the hands of the Japanese soldiers. However, they don't realize that this is all a trap. The Japanese had prepared a strategy to lock up the remaining zombies, leaving them cornered with no way out. Mick's anger reaches its peak. Not only him, but also all the remaining zombies. Their emotions peaked, making them even more brutal. With a force that could no longer be controlled, they finally managed to break down the barrier, forcing the Japanese troops to retreat. They began to plot revenge against the Japanese troops. However, not all of them agree with the plan. One of the zombies tried to oppose the idea, which immediately angered Mike. Filled with emotion, Mike even intends to kill him. However, before he could do so, Zombie Pan appeared and blocked him. Pan's resistance only made Mike lose control even more. The overwhelming sense of loss turned him into a monster in the truest sense of the word, a horrible figure who could no longer think clearly. In his rampage, he finished off Captain Kamaru, who had been the mastermind of the brutality against the Thai people. Kamaru, who tried to stop Mick's heinous actions, became the victim. In fact, previously Kamaru himself had ordered the massacre of villagers in order to eliminate eyewitnesses to the terrible experiments carried out by his country. Before his death, Kamaru had read an important note: zombies were very susceptible to fire. This information gave him a greater sense of confidence. Convinced that he could eliminate all the zombies, Kamaru led the Japanese troops to hunt them down without a trace of fear. Meanwhile, the remaining zombies must endure the agony of losing their loved ones. They retreated into the dark and cramped cave, seeking a final refuge. On the other hand, Kamaru and his troops entered the cave with full alertness. They knew the zombies could attack at any time. However, unbeknownst to them, in the pitch darkness, the zombies were already preparing a surprise attack. As soon as the Japanese troops arrived at a narrow passage, they were ambushed. The attack was led by Max, who had just returned from his disappearance. Unaware of all that had happened, Max fought tenaciously. Shot after shot was fired, but it was in vain. Regular bullets couldn't kill the zombies. The narrowing space made the Japanese soldiers lose their chance to escape. One by one they fell, until finally only Kamaru was left. In a last-ditch effort to survive, Kamaru tried to disguise his presence by applying mud to his body, hoping to remove the odor that attracted the zombies. However, his efforts were in vain. The zombies still managed to find him. In the midst of the chaos, Mao, who now felt that all his friends and relatives had turned into complete monsters, could no longer let this continue. He did not want to see the world filled with creatures that had lost control. Armed with the flamethrower weapon that Kamaru's troops had previously prepared, Mao unhesitatingly began to burn the zombies. The fire raged, devouring the bodies of his friends and family. In the flames, the zombies did not fight back. Instead, they embraced each other, letting themselves burn along with the Japanese soldiers. In fact, Mao himself also burned his body, willing to sacrifice himself to ensure that the virus completely disappeared from Thailand.